The Lotus Sutra, Chapter 5, Herbs. Thereupon, the Bhagavat addressed Mahakasyapa and other great disciples, saying, quote, Splendid, splendid, O Kasyapa! You have skillfully explained the real merit of the Tathagata. It is exactly as you have said. The Tathagata has immeasurable, unlimited, and incalculable merits. Thus, even in a period of immeasurable kotis of kalpas, you will never fully be able to explain all of his merits. O Kasyapa, you should know that the Tathagata is the king of all the teaching. What he teaches is never false. He explains all the teaching using his wisdom and skillful means, and what he teaches leads everyone to the stage of omniscience. The Tathagata perceives the goal of all teachings and knows the underlying mental disposition of all sentient beings, perceiving all with no obstructions. He completely understands all teachings and displays omniscience to all sentient beings. O Kasyapa, suppose in the great manifold cosmos there are mountains, rivers, valleys, and plains, where many kinds of grasses, trees, shrubs, and herbs of different names and colors grow. Dense clouds thoroughly cover this great manifold cosmos, and rain falls at the same time everywhere, moistening the small, medium, and large roots, stems, branches, and leaves of all the grasses, trees, shrubs, and herbs. The sizes of all the trees depends on whether their capacities are superior, mediocre, or inferior, and the rain falling from the same cloud makes them grow according to the nature of their various seeds. Flowers blossom in the same place, and fruit ripens in the same place, moistened by the same rain, yet there are differences among these grasses and trees. O Kasyapa, you should know that the Tathagata is exactly like this. He appears in this world like a great, overspreading cloud. His great voice resounds over the devas, humans, and asuras in the world, just as the great cloud thoroughly covers the great manifold cosmos. He declares to the assembly, quote, I am the Tathagata, Arhat, completely enlightened, perfect in knowledge and conduct, well departed, knower of the world, unsurpassed, tamer of humans, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha, Bhagavat. I set free those who have not been freed. I enlighten those who have not been enlightened, and bring calm to those who have not been calmed. I cause those to obtain nirvana who have not yet obtained it. I am the one who knows the present and future worlds exactly as they are. I am the all-knower, the all-seer, the knower of the path, the one who discloses the path and explains it. All of you devas, humans, and asuras, come and listen to my teachings. At that time, innumerable thousands of myriads of kotis of sentient beings approached the Buddha and listened to his teaching. Then, the Tathagata, perceiving the faculties of sentient beings, whether they are sharp or dull, diligent or idle, explains the teachings according to their capacities in a variety of immeasurable ways, gladdening and benefiting them all. Having heard his teaching, all of these beings are at peace in this world and are born into a good existence in the future. Through this, they will receive peace of mind and be able to hear the teaching. Having already heard the teaching, they will become free from obstructions and be able to gradually enter the path to the Dharma according to their capacities. Just like the great cloud that rains upon all the grasses, trees, shrubs, and herbs, whose seeds are watered and which grow according to their capacities, the Tathagata teaches the Dharma of one aspect and character, that is to say, the character of liberation, dispassion, and cessation, which ultimately leads to omniscience. Those sentient beings who hear, hold, and recite the teachings of the Tathagata and practice it accordingly will, nevertheless, not perceive the merit that they have obtained. Why is this? Only the Tathagata knows the seed, character, disposition, and capacity of sentient beings. Only he knows what they contemplate, think, and practice, how they contemplate, think, and practice, what teachings they contemplate, think, and practice, and what teaching they obtain through what teaching. Only the Tathagata exactly perceives and knows without obstructions the various states in which sentient beings reside. It is just like the grasses, trees, shrubs, and herbs that do not know their own natures, whether they are superior, mediocre, or inferior. Yet the Tathagata knows the teachings of one aspect and character, the character of liberation, dispassion, cessation, complete nirvana, and eternal tranquility, which ultimately leads to emptiness. The Buddha knows this and perceives the aspirations of sentient beings. For this reason, in order to protect them, he does not immediately teach omniscience. O Kasyapa, it is a rare thing that all of you know that the Tathagata teaches according to your capacities, and that you believe and accept it. Why is this? Because the Dharma taught by all the Buddha Bhagavats, according to what is appropriate to sentient beings, is difficult to understand and difficult to know. Thereupon, the Bhagavat, wanting to elaborate on the meaning of this further, spoke these verses. The king of the Dharma, the destroyer of delusive existence, appears in the world, and, keeping in mind the aspirations of sentient beings, teaches the Dharma in various ways according to the wishes of sentient beings. The Tathagata is greatly distinguished, and his wisdom is profound. He has been silent for a long time, and intentionally has not taught the essential in haste. Those who are wise will be well convinced when they hear it. Those who are not wise will have doubts and remain confused for a long time. That is why, O Kasyapa, the Tathagata teaches according to the capacities of sentient beings, and enables them to attain the correct perspective by using various illustrations. O Kasyapa, you should know that it is as if a great cloud arises in the world and covers everything. This beneficent cloud contains moisture, and bright lightning flashes from it. The sound of its thunder shakes the earth afar and gladdens the people. It conceals the sun and cools the earth. The spreading cloud hangs so low as if it could be touched. Everywhere, equal and immeasurable, the rain pours down and moistens the earth. Grasses, herbs, large and small trees, all kinds of crops, seedlings, sugar cane and grapes, growing in the depth of the mountains, in rivers, and in precipitous valleys, are all watered and completely nourished by the rain. The dry earth is moistened everywhere, and the herbs and trees grow up thickly. Out of this cloud, the same rain waters these grasses, trees, and shrubs, each according to their capacities. All the trees, small, medium, or large, are able to grow in accordance with their capacities. The luster and colors of the roots, stems, branches, leaves, and flowers are all freshened by the same rain. Each of these, although receiving the same moisture, reaches a greater or lesser size in accordance with their different dispositions, characteristics, and natures. The Buddha is exactly like this. He appears in the world as a great cloud which covers everything universally. Once appearing in this world, he illuminates and explains the essence of the teachings for the sake of beings. The great seer, the Bhagavat, expounds this to the assembly of all the devas and humans. I am the Tathagata, the best of humans. I appear in the world to nourish sentient beings, just as the great cloud moistens all the withered trees. I cause everyone to be rid of suffering and attain ease of heart, worldly happiness, and the joy of nirvana. So, devas and humans, listen carefully. Come, all of you, and look at the highest one. I am the Bhagavat. No one is equal to me. I appear in this world to bring peace of mind to sentient beings and to teach the Dharma of immortality to the great assembly. This Dharma has a single flavor of liberation and nirvana. I expound its meaning with the same subtle voice, always making the Mahayana the subject of my illustrations. I see everywhere and regard all as equal. I have no feelings of like or dislike. For me there is no this or that, nor do I have either love or hate. I have no attachments and make no distinctions, and so always teach the Dharma equally to all, and teach the same thing to one person as I teach to everyone else. I always teach the Dharma and nothing else. Going or coming, sitting or standing, I never tire of satisfying the world, just like the rain that gives nourishment universally. I tirelessly pour down the rain of the Dharma equally on those who are noble or humble, superior or inferior, who keep or break the precepts, who have good or bad conduct, right or wrong views, sharp or dull faculties. According to their power to understand, all sentient beings who hear my teaching dwell in various stages. Those living among humans, devas, noble emperors, Sakra and Brahma kings are like the small herbs. Those who know the incorruptible Dharma, who are able to attain nirvana, have the 6 transcendent powers and have attained the 3 sciences. Those who live alone in mountain forests, always practicing meditation, and who attain the enlightenment of the Pratyeka Buddhas are like the medium-sized herbs. Those who seek the stage of the Bhagavat, thinking that they will become Buddhas, and practice persistence and meditation are like the large herbs. The heirs of the Buddhas, who concentrate on the path of the Buddha, who always cultivate compassion within themselves and know definitely without a doubt that they will become Buddhas, are like the small trees. Those who are comfortable with transcendent powers, who turn the irreversible wheel of the Dharma and save innumerable hundreds of thousands of kotis of sentient beings, are the Bodhisattvas, who are like the large trees. The Buddha's equal teaching is like the rain of one flavor. The sentient beings accept it according to their different capacities, just as the grasses and trees each differently absorb the rain. The Buddha reveals the single teaching with illustrations, using skillful means, and explains it with various explanations, and yet it is just a drop in the ocean compared to the Buddha's wisdom. I pour down the rain of the Dharma, fulfilling the world, and the sentient beings practice the Dharma of one flavor according to their capacities. Just as the shrubs, herbs, and trees flourish in accordance with their capacities, reaching either a greater or lesser size, the teaching of the Buddhas is always of one flavor and fulfills the entire world. Anyone who practices it, little by little, obtains the fruit of the path. The Sravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, living in mountain forests, who, in their last bodies, hear the Dharma and attain its fruit, are just like the flourishing herbs. The Bodhisattvas, who are firm in wisdom, who completely understand the triple world and seek the highest vehicle, are just like the flourishing small trees. Those who abide in meditation, attain transcendent powers, listen to the teaching regarding the emptiness of every existence with great joy, and save sentient beings by emitting innumerable rays of light, are just like the flourishing large trees. In this way, O Kasyapa, the Dharma that the Buddha teaches is just like the great cloud that enriches human flowers with the rain of one flavor, so that each attains its fruits. O Kasyapa, you should know that I reveal the Buddha path, using various explanations and illustrations, and that this is my skillful means. All of the Buddhas are just like this. I will now teach the highest truth for your sake. Quote, there are no Sravakas who attain nirvana. What you practice is the Bodhisattva path, and if you practice, step by step, you will all become Buddhas. The Lotus Sutra, Chapter 6, Prediction. At that time, after the Bhagavat had spoken these verses, he addressed the great assembly, proclaiming, quote, this disciple of mine, Mahakasyapa, in the future will be able to meet 300 myriads of kotis of Buddha Bhagavats, to whom he will pay homage, respect, veneration, and praise. He will extensively expound the immeasurable great teachings of these Buddhas. In his last body, he will become a Buddha called Rashmi Prabhasa, a Tathagata, Arhat, completely enlightened, perfect in knowledge and conduct, well-departed, knower of the world, unsurpassed, tamer of humans, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha, Bhagavat. His world will be called Avabhasa Prapta, in the Kalpa called Mahavyuha. The lifespan of this Buddha will be 12 intermediate Kalpas. The true Dharma will last in the world for 20 intermediate Kalpas, and the semblance Dharma will also last for 20 intermediate Kalpas. His world will be adorned, and there will be no dirt, shards, thorns, excrement, or other impurities. The earth will be level, without irregularities, hollows, or hills. The earth will be made of lapis lazuli, with jeweled trees in rows. Golden cords will line the borders of these roads, which will be scattered with precious flowers, and everywhere will be pure. In his world, there will be immeasurable thousands of kotis of bodhisattvas, as well as innumerable shravakas. All malice will be far removed, and even though Mara and his minions will be there, they will all protect the Buddha Dharma. Thereupon, the Bhagavat, wanting to explain the meaning of this further, spoke these verses, quote, I tell you, O monks, that I see with the Buddha eye that Kasyapa in the future will become a Buddha after innumerable kalpas have passed. In the future, he will meet and pay homage to 300 myriads of kotis of Buddha Bhagavats and practice the pure path of discipline and integrity, seeking for the wisdom of the Buddhas. Having offered respect to the highest and best of humans, and having completely grasped the ultimate wisdom, he will become a Buddha while in his last body. His land will be pure. The earth will be made of lapis lazuli, and many jeweled trees will be in rows, along roads bordered with golden cords, and those who see it will be gladdened. The air will always be filled with a pleasant fragrance, and many beautiful flowers will be strewn about. Various wonderful things will adorn this earth, which will be level, without hills or hollows. There will be an incalculable number of bodhisattvas there, who will have the power of self-control, be versed in transcendent powers, and who will preserve the sutras of the Mahayana taught by the Buddhas. The multitude of Sravakas, bearing their last bodies, free from corruption, heirs of the Dharma King, will also be unreckonable. Their numbers will be impossible to calculate, even with the divine eye. The lifespan of this Buddha will be 12 intermediate kalpas. The true Dharma will last in the world for 20 intermediate kalpas, and the semblance Dharma will also last for 20 intermediate kalpas. Thus will things be with the Bhagavat Rashmi Prabhasa. At that time, Mahamaugalyayana, Subhuti, and Mahakatyayana were all charged with excitement, and with palms pressed together, they attentively gazed at the Bhagavat, never turning their eyes from him. They immediately spoke these verses in unison, quote, O Bhagavat, great hero, O king of the Dharma of the Sakyas, bestow the Buddha's words upon us, out of your compassion for us. If, knowing the depths of our hearts, you give us your predictions, it will be like cooling our fevers by sprinkling us with the Dharma of immortality. It is as though someone coming from a country suffering from famine were suddenly to find a great king's feast spread before him, yet is stricken with doubt and does not venture to eat until, being instructed by the king, he dares at last to do so. We are exactly like this. We have been constantly thinking about the faults of the inferior vehicle, and so we had no knowledge of the way to obtain the highest wisdom of the Buddha. Although we hear the Buddha's voice saying that we will become Buddhas, we still have doubts in our minds, as if we dare not eat the meal. If we receive the Buddha's prediction, it will immediately put us at ease. The Bhagavat, the great hero, always wants to put the world at ease. And so we entreat you to bestow upon us your predictions, as though to starving people waiting for permission to eat. Then the Bhagavat, knowing what lay in the thoughts of the great disciples, addressed the monks, saying, quote, This Subhuti in the future will meet, respect, venerate, praise, and pay homage to 300 myriads of kotis of Nayutas of Buddhas, and he will always practice the pure path of discipline and integrity, and complete the Bodhisattva path. In his last body, he will become a Buddha called Yashasketu, a Tathagata, Arhat, completely enlightened, perfect in knowledge and conduct, well-departed, knower of the world, unsurpassed, tamer of humans, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha, Bhagavat. His land will be called Ratnasambhava, in the Kalpa called Ratnavapasa. The land will be even, and the earth will be made of crystal and adorned with jeweled trees. It will be without pits, pebbles, thorns, or the filth of excrement. The earth will be covered with precious flowers, and will be everywhere pure. The people in this world will all live in wonderful towers with jeweled terraces. The Sravakas, the disciples there, will be innumerable and limitless, beyond calculation and metaphor, and there will also be innumerable thousands of myriads of kotis of Nayutas of Bodhisattvas. The lifespan of this Buddha will be 12 intermediate kalpas. The true Dharma will last in the world for 20 intermediate kalpas, and the semblance Dharma will also last for 20 intermediate kalpas. This Buddha will always dwell in the air, teaching the Dharma for the multitude, and he will save incalculable bodhisattvas and shravakas. Thereupon, the Bhagavat, wanting to explain the meaning of this further, spoke these verses. O monks, I shall now make something known to you. You should attentively listen to what I have to say. My great disciple, Subhuti, will become a Buddha called Yashasketu. He will pay homage to innumerable myriads of kotis of Buddhas, and, following the Buddha's practice, he will gradually come to complete the great path. He will attain the 32 marks in his last body, and his form will be fine and beautiful, just like a jeweled mountain. His Buddha world will be ultimately pure. Of the sentient beings who see it, there will be none who do not rejoice. There the Buddha will bring incalculable sentient beings to enlightenment. In the midst of his Dharma, there will be many bodhisattvas with keen faculties, who turn the irreversible wheel of the Dharma. This world will always be graced with bodhisattvas. There will also be incalculable numbers of shravakas. All of them will have perfected the 3 sciences and the 6 transcendent powers, will abide in the 8 liberations, and have great dignity and virtue. The Buddha will expound the Dharma and reveal immeasurable, unthinkable, transcendent powers. All the devas and humans, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River, will listen to the Buddha's words with palms pressed together. The lifespan of this Buddha will be 12 intermediate kalpas. The true Dharma will last in the world for 20 intermediate kalpas, and the semblance Dharma will also last for 20 intermediate kalpas. Thereupon, the Bhagavat addressed the monks, saying, quote, I will now tell you that this Mahakatyayana in the future will honor, respect, and pay homage to 8,000 kotis of Buddhas with offerings. After the parinirvanas of these Buddhas, he will erect stupas, each of which will be 1,000 yojanas in height and 500 yojanas in both width and depth. These stupas will all be constructed of the 7 precious treasures: gold, silver, lapis lazuli, mother of pearl, agate, pearls, and rubies. He will pay homage to these stupas with many flowers and necklaces, fragrant ointments, scented powders, burning incense, canopies, flags, and banners. After this, he will also pay homage to 2 myriads of kotis of Buddhas in exactly the same way, and having done so, he will perfect the Bodhisattva path and become a Buddha called Jambunadabhasa, a Tathagata, Arhat, completely enlightened, perfect in knowledge and conduct, well-departed, knower of the world, unsurpassed, tamer of humans, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha, Bhagavat. His land will be level. The earth will be made of crystal, and it will be adorned with jeweled trees. The roads will be bordered with golden cords, and beautiful flowers will cover the earth. It will be pure everywhere, and those who see it will rejoice. There will be none of the 4 troubled states of being, namely the hells, hungry ghosts, animals, and asuras. There will be many devas and humans, and immeasurable myriads of kotis of shravakas and bodhisattvas will grace this world. The lifespan of this Buddha will be 12 intermediate kalpas. The true Dharma will last in the world for 20 intermediate kalpas, and the semblance Dharma will also last for 20 intermediate kalpas. At that time, the Bhagavat, wanting to explain the meaning of this further, spoke these verses. O monks, listen carefully. What I shall say is nothing but the truth. This Katyayana will pay homage to the Buddhas with various wonderful offerings. After the parinirvanas of those Buddhas, he will erect stupas constructed of the 7 precious treasures, and offer respect to their relics with flowers and incense. In his last body, he will attain the wisdom of the Buddha, and will achieve complete enlightenment. His world will be pure, and he will save incalculable myriads of kotis of sentient beings. He will be venerated in the 10 directions. There is nothing that surpasses this Buddha's ray of light, so this Buddha will be called Jambunadabhasa. There will be innumerable, uncountable bodhisattvas and shravakas gracing this world, who have shaken free from every state of being. Thereupon, the Bhagavat again addressed the assembly, saying, quote, I will now tell you that this Mahamagalayana will respect, venerate, and pay homage to 8,000 Buddhas with various offerings, and after the parinirvanas of these Buddhas, he will erect stupas, each of which will be 1,000 yojanas in height and 500 yojanas in both depth and width. These stupas will be constructed with the 7 precious treasures: gold, silver, lapis lazuli, mother of pearl, agate, pearls, and rubies. He will offer them various flowers, necklaces, fragrant ointments, scented powders, burning incense, canopies, flags, and banners. After this he will pay homage to 200 myriads of kotis of Buddhas in exactly the same way, and will become a Buddha called Kamalapatra Khandana Ganda, a Tathagata, Arhat, completely enlightened, perfect in knowledge and conduct, well departed, knower of the world, unsurpassed, tamer of humans, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha, Bhagavat. His world will be called Manobihirama, in the Kalpa called Radiprapurna. The land will be level, the earth will be made of crystal, adorned with jeweled trees, and strewn with flowers of pearls. It will be pure everywhere, and those who see it will rejoice. There will be many devas and humans, innumerable bodhisattvas, and shravakas. The lifespan of this Buddha will be 24 intermediate kalpas. The true Dharma will last in this world for 40 intermediate kalpas, and the semblance Dharma will also last for 40 intermediate kalpas. Then the Bhagavat, wanting to elaborate on this meaning, spoke these verses. This disciple of mine, Mahamogga Lalyayana, having abandoned this body, will meet 8,000 and then 200 myriads of kotis of Buddha Bhagavats. For the sake of the Buddha path, he will pay them homage and respect them, and always practice holy conduct of discipline and integrity in the presence of these Buddhas. He will uphold the Buddha Dharma for immeasurable kalpas. After the parinirvanas of these Buddhas, he will erect stupas constructed with the 7 precious treasures, on which gold banners will be long displayed. He will pay homage to these stupas of the Buddhas with flowers, incense, and music. After having mastered the Bodhisattva path step by step in a land called Manobirama, he will become a Buddha called Kamalapatra Khandana Aganda. The lifespan of this Buddha will be 24 intermediate kalpas. He will always expound the Buddha path for the sake of devas and humans. There will be countless shravakas, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River, who will have perfected the 3 sciences and 6 transcendent powers, and have great dignity and virtue. There will be innumerable bodhisattvas, resolute and persevering, who will never turn away from the wisdom of the Buddhas. After the parinirvana of this Buddha, the true Dharma will last for 40 intermediate kalpas, and the semblance Dharma will also be like this. All of my disciples, 500 in number, who are endowed with dignity and virtue, will also receive my prediction. In the future, they will all become Buddhas. I will now explain the relationships that you and I have formed in past lives. All of you, listen carefully. The Lotus Sutra, Chapter 7, The Apparitional City. The Buddha addressed the monks, saying, quote, Once upon a time, immeasurable, limitless, inconceivable, incalculable kalpas ago, there was a Buddha called Mahabhijnana Bhibu Tathagata, an Arhat, completely enlightened, perfect in knowledge and conduct, well departed, knower of the world, unsurpassed, tamer of humans, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha, Bhagavat. His land was called Susambhava, in the Kalpa called Maharupa. O monks, it has been an extremely long time since this Buddha entered nirvana. Suppose there was a man who ground the earth of the entire great manifold cosmos into powdered ink, and he were to then pass through 1,000 worlds to the east, where he let fall a single particle of ink the size of a speck of dust. After passing through another 1,000 worlds, he let fall another particle, and he continued in this way until he had completely used all the ink. What do you think about this? Do you think that a mathematician or a mathematician's pupil would be able to count those worlds to the last particle, or not? O Bhagavat, no, they could not. O monks, suppose that all the worlds this man passed through, whether letting fall a particle or not, were all ground into dust, and one speck of this dust were equal to 1 kalpa. The time since the parinirvana of this Buddha surpasses this number by immeasurable, limitless, incalculable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of kalpas. And through the power of the Tathagata's wisdom and insight, I can see this distant past, as if it were today. Thereupon, the Bhagavat, wanting to elaborate on the meaning of this further, spoke these verses, quote, I recall that in the past, immeasurable kalpas ago, there was a Buddha, the most honored among two-legged beings, called Mahabhijnanabibhu. Suppose there was a man who vigorously ground up in its entirety the earth of the great manifold cosmos and turned it all to powdered ink. After passing through 1,000 worlds, he let fall one particle of ink. And in this way, he continued to let fall particles until he had used up all the ink. If all these worlds, those where he let fall a particle, and those where he did not, were to be ground into specks of dust, and one speck of dust were equal to a single kalpa, their number would be surpassed by the number of kalpas that have passed since that Buddha's parinirvana. So incalculable has this number of kalpas been. With the Tathagata's unobstructed wisdom, I know of these bodhisattvas and sravakas and the parinirvana of this Buddha. It is as if I see his parinirvana today. O monks, you should know that with the knowledge of the Buddha, which is pure and subtle, incorrupted and without obstructions, I perceive what happened immeasurable kalpas ago. The Buddha addressed the monks, saying, quote, the lifespan of this Buddha, Mahabhijnanabibhu, was 540 myriads of kotis of nayutas of kalpas. When that Buddha was seated on the terrace of enlightenment, after having defeated Mara's army, he tried to obtain highest complete enlightenment, yet the Dharma of the Buddhas did not appear to him. In this way, even after having sat cross-legged for 1 to 10 intermediate kalpas, undisturbed in body and mind, the Dharma of the Buddhas still did not appear to him. At that time, a group of 33 devas first prepared for that Buddha a lion seat 1 yojana in height under the Bodhi tree, for this Buddha was to attain highest complete enlightenment on that seat. As soon as the Buddha sat on this seat, all the Brahmas rained down various heavenly flowers for 100 yojanas around. Periodically a fragrant breeze would blow away the withered flowers, and they would rain down fresh ones. In this way, they unceasingly paid homage to the Buddha for a full 10 intermediate kalpas, raining down these flowers continuously until his parinirvana. The devas of the 4 quarters constantly struck heavenly drums to honor the Buddha, and in the same way, all the other devas made divine music for a full 10 intermediate kalpas until his parinirvana. O monks, the Dharma of the Buddhas appeared to the Buddha Mahabhijnanabibhu after 10 intermediate kalpas had passed, and he attained highest complete enlightenment. This Buddha had 16 children before he renounced household life. The eldest child was called Jnanakara. Each child had various kinds of rare toys. After hearing about their father's attainment of highest complete enlightenment, they all put aside their toys and set out for where the Buddha was. Weeping sad tears, their mothers saw them off. Their grandfather, the wheel-turning sage king, went with them, along with 100 ministers and hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of people. When they arrived at the terrace of enlightenment, they all wanted to approach the Tathagata Mahabhijnanabibhu and pay homage and respect, honor and praise him. They came up to him and bowed until their foreheads touched his feet, and then circled around him. Attentively, with palms pressed together, they gazed at the Bhagavat and spoke these verses. The Bhagavat of great virtuous dignity, in order to bring sentient beings to the path, after immeasurable kotis of kalpas and perfecting all the vows, finally became a Buddha. How wonderful! There is nothing more auspicious. The Bhagavat is truly extraordinary. He sat tranquil for 10 intermediate kalpas, with his body and limbs immobile. His mind was always calm and never distracted. He has attained ultimate eternal tranquility and is firmly established in the incorruptible Dharma. Now, seeing the Bhagavat, who has serenely attained the Buddha path, we receive benefit and celebrate with great joy. Sentient beings, ever suffering, are blind and without a teacher. They are unaware of the path that leads to the extinction of suffering, ignorant of the way to seek liberation. From one blind state to the next, those in the troubled states of being daily increase, while the devas decrease. They never hear the Buddha's name. Now, the Buddha has attained the highest, serene, and incorruptible Dharma. Thus, we and the devas and humans shall obtain the greatest benefit. Therefore, we all bow and pay homage to the highest Lord. At that time, the 16 princes, having praised the Buddha in verse, requested that the Bhagavat turn the wheel of the Dharma, saying, quote, "O Bhagavat, teach the Dharma. Put all the devas and people at ease and benefit them through your compassion." They spoke further in verse, saying, "O hero of the world, the one who has no equal, who is adorned with 100 merits and has attained the highest wisdom, we entreat you to teach for the sake of the world and bring us and all the other sentient beings to the path. Illuminate and reveal this wisdom so that we may attain it. If we can become Buddhas, so can the other sentient beings. The Bhagavat knows the deep-seated intentions of sentient beings and the paths they practice, as well as the power of their wisdom. May the Bhagavat, being wholly aware of their positive intentions, accumulated merits, and past deeds, turn the highest wheel of the Dharma." The Buddha addressed the monks, saying, quote, "When the Buddha Mahabhijna Bibhu attained highest, complete enlightenment, 500 myriads of kotis of Buddha worlds in each of the 10 directions quaked in 6 ways. The dark places between the worlds, where the rays of the sun and moon had been unable to penetrate, were brightly illuminated. The sentient beings there were able to see each other and said, quote, 'How is it possible that sentient beings have suddenly appeared here?' Moreover, those worlds from the heavenly palaces up to the palaces of the Brahmas also quaked in 6 ways. The great ray of light shone everywhere, filling the worlds with a radiance that surpassed the light of the devas. At that time, the palaces of Brahmas in the 500 myriads of kotis of worlds in the east were illuminated twice as brightly as usual. The great Brahmas each thought, quote, 'The palaces are illuminated now as never before. What has caused this phenomenon?' At that time, all of the great Brahmas approached each other to discuss this matter. In that assembly, there was a great Brahma called Sarvasattvatratar, who spoke to the assembly of Brahmas in verse, saying, quote, 'This illumination of our palaces has never occurred before. Let us find out the reason for this. This great ray of light has illuminated the 10 directions. Has a diva of great merit been born, or has a Buddha appeared in the world?' Then the great Brahmas of the 100 myriads of kotis of worlds went toward the west with their palaces to inquire about this phenomenon, carrying heavenly flowers in their robes. They saw the Tathagata Mahabhijna Bibhu on the terrace of enlightenment, sitting on the lion's seat under the Bodhi tree. He was respectfully surrounded by humans and such non-humans as devas, naga kings, gandharvas, kimnaras, and maharagas. They also saw the 16 princes, requesting the Buddha to turn the wheel of the Dharma. Then the great Brahmas bowed until their foreheads touched the Buddha's feet, and then circled around him 100,000 times. They scattered heavenly flowers on the Buddha, and the flowers they scattered were piled high as Mount Sumeru. They also paid homage to the Buddha's Bodhi tree, which was 10 yojanas in height. Having reverently offered him flowers, they presented their palaces to the Buddha, saying, quote, 'Please accept the palaces we now offer you, and benefit us through your compassion.' Then the great Brahma spoke these verses wholeheartedly and in unison before the Buddha, quote, 'The Bhagavat, who is truly extraordinary, is extremely difficult to meet. He is endowed with immeasurable qualities, and seeks to protect all. The great teacher of devas and humans feels compassion for the world and causes all sentient beings in the 10 directions to be universally benefited. All of us, who have come from 500 myriads of kotis of worlds, have given up the pleasure of deep meditation in order to pay homage to the Buddha. To the Bhagavat we now present our palaces, which the merits of our previous lives have caused to be completely adorned. Please accept them through your compassion.' Thereupon, having praised the Buddha in verse, the great Brahmas each said this, quote, 'O Bhagavat, we entreat you to turn the wheel of the Dharma, open the path to nirvana, and guide sentient beings to it. Then the great Brahmas attentively spoke these verses in unison. O hero of the world, the most honored among two-legged beings, we entreat you to expound the Dharma and bring the suffering beings to the path through the power of your great compassion. Then the Tathagata Mahabhijnana Bibhu silently consented. Furthermore, O monks, the great Brahmas in the 500 myriads of kotis of worlds in the southeast saw their palaces illuminated with a ray of light that had never occurred before. Joyful and ecstatic, they were struck with wonder. They assembled to discuss the matter. At that time, there was a great Brahma called Adhimatrakarunaka. He spoke to the assembly of Brahmas in verse, saying, quote, "What is the reason that this phenomenon has appeared? Even since the olden times, this illumination of all our palaces is without precedent. Has a diva of great merit been born, or has a Buddha appeared in the world? Since we have never seen such a phenomenon, we should seek thoroughly for its source. Even if we have to pass through thousands of myriads of kotis of worlds, we should seek together for the source of this light. Possibly a Buddha has appeared in the world to save suffering sentient beings." Thereupon, 500 myriads of kotis of great Brahmas went toward the northwest with their palaces, carrying heavenly flowers in their robes, to inquire about this phenomenon. They saw the Tathagata Mahabhijnana Bibhu on the terrace of enlightenment, sitting on the lion's seat under the Bodhi tree. He was respectfully surrounded by humans, and such non-humans as Devas, Naga kings, Gandharvas, Kimnaras, and Mahoragas. They also saw the 16 princes, requesting the Buddha to turn the wheel of the Dharma. Then all the Brahmas bowed until their foreheads touched the Buddha's feet, and then circled around him 100,000 times. They scattered heavenly flowers on the Buddha, and the flowers they scattered were piled up high as Mount Sumeru. They also paid homage to the Buddha's Bodhi tree. Having reverently offered the Buddha flowers, they presented their palaces to him, saying, quote, "Please accept the palaces we now offer you, and benefit us through your compassion." Then the great Brahmas spoke these verses wholeheartedly and in unison before the Buddha, quote, "O great sage, diva of divas, we now bow to the one whose voice is as beautiful as the Kalavinka birds, and who has compassion for sentient beings. The Bhagavat is truly extraordinary, and can only be seen once in an extremely long time. 180 kalpas have passed away fruitlessly, and no Buddhas have appeared during this time. The worlds have been filled with people in the 3 troubled states of being, and the divas have decreased. The Buddha has now appeared in the world to be the eyes of sentient beings. He will be the refuge of the world, and will seek to protect all. As the father of sentient beings, he is the compassionate benefactor. Because of our past merits, we now have the good fortune to be able to meet the Bhagavat." Thereupon, having praised the Buddha in verse, the great Brahmas said this, quote, "O Bhagavat, we entreat you to turn the wheel of the Dharma out of your compassion for all, and save sentient beings." Then the great Brahmas spoke these verses wholeheartedly and in unison, quote, "O great sage, make us very happy. Turn the wheel of the Dharma. Reveal the character of all Dharmas. Save the suffering beings. If sentient beings hear this Dharma, they will attain the path and be born as divas. The beings in the troubled states of being will decrease, while those who persevere in the good will increase." Then the Tathagata Mahabhijnana Bibhu silently consented. Furthermore, O monks, the great Brahmas in the 500s of thousands of kotis of lands in the south each saw their palaces illuminated as they had never been before. Joyful and ecstatic, they were struck with wonder. They immediately assembled to discuss this matter together, asking, "Why have our palaces been illuminated?" At that time, there was a great Brahma called Sudharma. He spoke to the assembly of Brahmas in verse, saying, quote, "Our palaces are illuminated with brilliant light. There must be a reason for this, and we should seek its source. We have not seen such a phenomenon during the past hundreds of thousands of kalpas. Has a diva of great merit been born, or has a Buddha appeared in the world?" Thereupon, 500 myriads of kotis of great Brahmas went toward the north with their palaces to inquire about this phenomenon, carrying heavenly flowers in their robes. They saw the Tathagata Mahabhijnana Bibhu on the terrace of enlightenment, sitting on the lion's seat under the Bodhi tree. He was respectfully surrounded by humans and such non-humans as Devas, Naga kings, Gandharvas, Kimnaras, and Maharagas. They also saw the 16 princes, requesting the Buddha to turn the wheel of the Dharma. Then all the great Brahmas bowed until their foreheads touched the Buddha's feet, and then circled around him 100,000 times. They scattered heavenly flowers on the Buddha, and the flowers they scattered piled up as high as Mount Sumeru. They also paid homage to the Buddha's Bodhi tree. Having revered the Buddha with flowers, they offered their palaces to him, saying, quote, "Please accept the palaces we now offer you and benefit us through your compassion." Then the great Brahmas spoke these verses wholeheartedly and in unison before the Buddha. "O destroyer of afflictions, it is extremely difficult to meet a Bhagavat. We are now meeting the Buddha for the first time since 130 kalpas have passed away. Please satisfy sentient beings who are suffering from hunger and thirst by pouring down the rain of the Dharma. O one possessed of immeasurable wisdom, whom we have never met before, today we have encountered the one who appears as rarely as the Adambara flower blooms. Our palaces are beautifully adorned by this ray of light. We entreat you to accept them out of your great compassion." Thereupon, having praised the Buddha in verse, the great Brahma said this, quote, "O Bhagavat, we request that you turn the wheel of the Dharma, thus causing the Devamaras, Brahmas, Shramanas, and Brahmins to be at ease and saving them all." Then the great Brahma spoke these verses wholeheartedly and in unison, quote, "We entreat you, O best of devas and humans, to turn the wheel of the highest Dharma, beat the drum of the great Dharma, blow the conch of the great Dharma, rain the rain of the great Dharma everywhere, and save incalculable sentient beings. We have all come to request that you expound it with your profound voice." Then the Tathagata Mahabhijnana Bhikkhu silently consented. The very same thing happened in the worlds from the southwestern to the lower regions, as well as those in other directions. Then all the great Brahmas in the 500 myriads of kotis of lands in the upper region saw their palaces illuminated with a light that had never existed before. Joyful and ecstatic, they were struck with wonder. They immediately assembled to discuss this matter together, asking, quote, "Why have our palaces been illuminated?" There was a great Brahma in that assembly called Sikhin. He spoke to the assembly of Brahmas in verse, saying, quote, "Why have all our palaces been brilliantly illuminated with this light of virtuous dignity and adorned in this unprecedented way? We have never seen such a wonderful phenomenon. Has a diva of great merit been born? Or has a Buddha appeared in the world?" And thereupon 500 myriads of kotis of great Brahmas went into the lower regions with their palaces to inquire about this phenomenon, carrying heavenly flowers in their robes. They saw the Tathagata Mahabhijnana Bhikkhu on the terrace of enlightenment, sitting on the lion's seat under the Bodhi tree. He was respectfully surrounded by humans and such non-humans as Devas, Naga kings, Gandharvas, Kimnaras, and Maharagas. They also saw the 16 princes requesting the Buddha to turn the wheel of the Dharma. Then all the great Brahmas bowed until their foreheads touched the Buddha's feet, and then circumambulated him 100,000 times. They scattered heavenly flowers on the Buddha, and the flowers they scattered were piled up as high as Mount Sumeru. They also paid homage to the Buddha's Bodhi tree. Having reverently offered him flowers, they presented their palaces to the Buddha, saying, quote, "Please accept the palaces we now offer you, and benefit us through your compassion." Then all the great Brahmas spoke these verses wholeheartedly and in unison before the Buddha. How splendid it is to meet the Buddhas, the great sages who deliver the world, who diligently work to get sentient beings out of the hell of the triple world. The best of devas and humans, who has universal wisdom, out of compassion for everyone, opens the gate to immortality and extensively saves all. Since olden times, immeasurable kalpas have passed away in vain, without the presence of the Buddha. In the time before the Bhagavat appears, the 10 directions are in constant darkness. Those in the 3 troubled states of being increase, and the asuras also flourish. The devas decrease all the more, and when they die, many of them fall into those troubled states. Having never heard the teaching from the Buddha, all of them always behave badly, and their physical power and wisdom decreases. Because of their erring deeds, they lose happiness or any notion of it. Abiding in the teaching of false views, they know nothing of good conduct. Deprived of the Buddha's inspiration, they always fall into the troubled states of being. After a very long time, the Buddha has now appeared as the eye of the world. It is out of compassion for sentient beings that the Buddha appears in the world. Transcending everything, the Buddha has attained complete enlightenment. We are all extremely happy, and all the other beings joyfully acclaim this unprecedented experience. All our palaces are beautifully adorned by this ray of light. We now offer them to the Bhagavat. Please accept them out of your compassion. By the universal transference of this merit, may we and all other beings together attain the Buddha path. Thereupon, the 500 myriads of kotis of great Brahmas, having praised the Buddha in verse, each spoke to him, saying, quote, O Bhagavat, we strongly entreat you to turn the wheel of the Dharma, give ease to many, and enable them to attain the path. Then all the great Brahmas spoke these verses, quote, O Bhagavat, turn the wheel of the Dharma, beat the drum of the Dharma of immortality, save the suffering sentient beings, and reveal the path to nirvana. We strongly entreat you to accept our request, and out of your compassion, and with your wonderful voice, expound the Dharma that you have perfected over immeasurable kalpas. And then the Tathagata Mahabhijna Jnana Bibhu acceded to the request made by all the great Brahmas from the 10 directions and the 16 princes. He then immediately turned 3 times the Dharma wheel of 12 spokes that no Shrammanas, Brahmins, Devamaras, Brahmas, or any other being in the world could turn. He taught, quote, This is suffering. This is the origination of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. This is the path that leads to the cessation of suffering, i.e., the 4 noble truths. He also extensively taught the Dharma of the 12-linked chain of dependent origination, saying, quote, Conditioned states are dependent on ignorance. Consciousness is dependent on conditioned states. Name and form are dependent on consciousness. The 6 sense fields are dependent on name and form. Contact is dependent on the 6 sense fields. Feelings are dependent on contact. Craving is dependent on feelings. Grasping is dependent on craving. Becoming is dependent on grasping. Birth is dependent on becoming. And old age, sickness, death, anxiety, sorrow, suffering, and distress are dependent on birth. When ignorance ceases, then conditioned states cease. When conditioned states cease, then consciousness ceases. When consciousness ceases, then name and form cease. When name and form cease, then the 6 sense fields cease. When the 6 sense fields cease, then contact ceases. When contact ceases, the feelings cease. When feelings cease, then craving ceases. When craving ceases, then grasping ceases. When grasping ceases, then becoming ceases. When becoming ceases, then birth ceases. When birth ceases, then old age, sickness, death, anxiety, sorrow, suffering, and distress cease. When the Buddha explained this Dharma to the great assembly of the devas and humans, at that time 600 myriads of kotis of nayutas of people, because they were not attached to any existent thing, became free of all corruption. All of them perfected profound meditations, the 3 sciences, the 6 transcendent powers, and were endowed with the 8 liberations. When he taught the Dharma for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th time, thousands of myriads of kotis of nayutas of sentient beings, equal to the sands of the Ganges River, who were not attached to any existent thing, became free of all corruption. Innumerable, immeasurable, incalculable Shravakas followed in their turn. At that time, the 16 princes, who were still young, renounced household life and became Shramanaras. All their faculties were sharp, and their wisdom was penetrating. They had paid homage to hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of Buddhas, practiced the pure path of discipline and integrity, and sought highest, complete enlightenment. They all spoke to the Buddha, saying, quote, O Bhagavat, All of these immeasurable thousands of myriads of kotis of Shravakas of great merit have all attained perfection. O Bhagavat, you should also expound the teaching of highest complete enlightenment to us. Hearing it, we shall all practice it. O Bhagavat, we aspire for the wisdom and insight of the Tathagata. The Buddha himself knows what is deep in our minds. At that time, 8 myriads of kotis of people in the assembly who served the noble emperor saw the 16 princes renounce household life and appealed to the emperor to allow their own renunciation. The emperor immediately gave his permission. Then the Buddha accepted the request of the Shramaneras. After 20,000 kalpas had passed, he taught to the fourfold assembly this Mahayana Sutra called the Lotus Sutra, the instruction for bodhisattvas and treasured lore of the Buddhas. After the Buddha taught this sutra, all the 16 Shramaneras preserved, recited, and understood it in order to achieve highest complete enlightenment. When the Buddha taught this sutra, all the 16 Shramaneras, the bodhisattvas, completely accepted it. There were also some among the Shravakas who believed it, but all the other thousands of myriads of kotis of sentient beings became confused. The Buddha continuously taught this sutra for 8,000 kalpas without stopping. After teaching this sutra, he immediately entered a quiet place and abided in meditation for 84,000 kalpas. At that time, each of the 16 Shramaneras, the bodhisattvas, knowing that the Buddha had entered the quiet place and was abiding tranquilly in meditation, ascended the Dharma seat and extensively taught and explained the Lotus Sutra to the fourfold assembly for 84,000 kalpas. Each of them saved 600 myriads of kotis of nayutas of sentient beings, equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. By revealing and teaching it, they gladdened these sentient beings and awoke in them the thought of highest complete enlightenment. Having arisen from Samadhi after 84,000 kalpas had passed, the Buddha Mahabhijna Jnana Bibhu approached the Dharma seat and sat down with complete mindfulness. He addressed everyone in the assembly, saying, quote, "These 16 Shramaneras, bodhisattvas, are extraordinary. All their faculties are sharp, and their wisdom is penetrating. In times past, they have paid homage to immeasurable thousands of myriads of kotis of Buddhas and have constantly practiced the pure path of discipline and integrity under them. They preserved the wisdom of the Buddhas and revealed it to sentient beings, causing them to enter into it. All of you should approach and pay them homage again and again. Why is this? If there are any Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas who are able to believe and preserve the teaching in this sutra expounded by these 16 Bodhisattvas and not disparage it, they will all attain the wisdom of the Tathagata, highest complete enlightenment." The Buddha addressed the monks, saying, quote, "These 16 Bodhisattvas always willingly taught this Lotus Sutra. Each Bodhisattva has inspired 600 myriads of kotis of nayutas of sentient beings equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. In life after life, they remained with these Bodhisattvas, and, hearing this teaching from them, they believed and understood. For this reason, they were able to meet 4 myriads of kotis of Buddha Bhagavats during a period uninterrupted up to the present. O monks, I shall now tell you that these 16 Shramaneras, disciples of that Buddha, Mahabhijna Jnana Bibhu, have now attained highest complete enlightenment and presently teach the Dharma in the lands of the 10 directions. There are immeasurable hundreds of thousands of myriads of bodhisattvas and shravakas who have become their attendants. 2 of these Shramaneras became Buddhas in the east. One is called Aksobhaya in the land called Abhirati, and the other is called Merakuta. In the southeast, there are 2 Buddhas. One is called Simhaghosa, and the other is called Simhadhadvaja. In the south, there are 2 Buddhas called Akasapratisthita and Nityaparinirvirta. There are also 2 Buddhas in the southwest. One is called Indradavaja, and the other is called Brahmadavaja. In the west, there are 2 Buddhas called Amitayus and Sarvalokadatu Padra Vodvega Prati Utirna. There are 2 Buddhas in the northwest. One is called Tamalapatra Bijna. The other is called Merukalpa. In the north there are 2 Buddhas. One is called Meghasvaradipa, and the other is called Meghasvararaja. In the northeast there is a Buddha called Sarva Loka Bhaya Achambitat Vavid Vama Sanakara. And the 16th one is myself, Buddha Sakyamuni, who in this Saha world achieved highest, complete enlightenment. O monks, when we were Sramaneras, each of us inspired immeasurable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of sentient beings equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. Those sentient beings who heard the teaching from me attained highest complete enlightenment. There are sentient beings who still abide in the stage of Sravaka and whom I will inspire to attain highest complete enlightenment. By means of this teaching, they will gradually enter the Buddha path. Why is this? The wisdom of the Tathagatas is hard to believe and hard to understand. Those incalculable sentient beings equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River who were inspired at that time were you, O monks, and those disciples who will be Sravakas in the future, after my parinirvana. After my parinirvana, there will be disciples who will not hear this sutra, and will neither know nor understand the bodhisattva practice. Yet, through the merit they have acquired, the thought of extinction will awaken in them, and they will enter parinirvana. I will become a Buddha in another land with a different name. Although the idea of extinction has awoken in these disciples, and they have entered parinirvana, in that land they will still seek the wisdom of the Buddhas, and will then be able to hear this sutra. They can obtain parinirvana only through the Buddha vehicle. There are no other vehicles except the one taught through the skillful means of the Tathagata. O monks, when the Tathagata realizes that the time of his parinirvana is approaching, knowing that the assembly is pure, firm in belief and understanding, has penetrated the teaching of emptiness, and has deeply entered meditation, he will then gather the assembly of bodhisattvas and sravakas together and teach this sutra to them. In this world there is no second vehicle through which one can attain parinirvana. Only through the single Buddha vehicle can one attain it. You should know, O monks, that the Tathagata, through skillful means, deeply penetrates the dispositions of sentient beings. Knowing their inclination toward the inferior teachings, and that they are deeply attached to the desires of the 5 senses, he teaches nirvana for their sake. If they listen, they will accept it. Suppose, in a desolate, fearful place, there were a dangerous road 500 yojanas long. There is a large group that wants to travel along this road to reach a place where there is a great treasure. They have a leader who is wise and penetrating, and who knows the passable and impassable parts of this dangerous road very well. Although he wants to guide these people past the danger, they become exhausted along the way. Addressing the leader, they say, quote, "We are extremely tired and frightened. We cannot go any further. We are still far away from our destination, and we want to turn back." The leader, knowing many skillful means, thinks, quote, "These people are to be pitied. How could they want to turn back and abandon the great treasure?" After thinking this, the leader, through his skillful means, magically creates a city 300 yojanas away along the dangerous road. He addresses the people saying, quote, "Do not be frightened. Do not turn back. You may now stay in this great city and be at your leisure. If you enter this city, you can be comfortable and at ease. Once you are able to go on and reach the treasure site, then you can depart once more." Then the exhausted people rejoice greatly and praise this unprecedented experience, saying, quote, "We are now free of this evil road and will be comfortable and at ease." Then they proceed to the apparitional city and enter it. They believe that their hardships are over and feel at ease. Then the leader realizes that they are rested and their fatigue has gone. He immediately makes the apparitional city vanish and says to the people, quote, "All of you, come along. The treasure site is near. I made that great apparitional city only in order to let you rest." O monks, the Tathagata is exactly like this. Now, for your sake, he has become a great leader who knows the long, dangerous, and evil road of birth, death, and desire's confusion. You should leave it and be saved. If sentient beings hear only about the single Buddha vehicle, they will then want neither to see nor approach a Buddha. They will think that the Buddha path is long and attainable only after enduring severe and protracted suffering. The Buddha, knowing their minds, knowing that they are weak-willed and of lowly aspiration, teaches them the two nirvanas through skillful means in order to let them rest halfway to the goal. If there are sentient beings who abide in either of these two stages, the Tathagata immediately teaches, quote, "What you have accomplished is not complete. The stage you abide in is close to the wisdom of the Buddhas. You should observe and consider that the nirvana you have obtained is not the true one. It is only through the power of the Tathagata's skillful means that the single Buddha vehicle is explained as three." The Buddha is just like that leader who conjured a great apparitional city to let the people rest. Knowing that they were rested, he addressed them, saying, quote, "The treasure site is near. This city is not real. It is only my invention." Thereupon, the Bhagavat, wanting to elaborate on the meaning of this further, spoke these verses. The Buddha, Mahabhijnana Bibhu, sat on the terrace of enlightenment for 10 kalpas, but still the Dharma of the Buddhas did not appear to him, and he did not attain the Buddha path. The Devas, Naga kings, Asuras, and others constantly rained down heavenly flowers in order to pay homage to that Buddha. The Devas beat heavenly drums and played various kinds of music. The fragrant winds blew the withered flowers away, and then they rained down fresh, beautiful ones. After 10 intermediate kalpas had passed, he then attained the Buddha path, and all the devas and humans became joyful and ecstatic. The 16 princes of that Buddha, surrounded by thousands of myriads of kotis of attendants, came to the place where the Buddha was. Having bowed until their foreheads touched his feet, they requested him to turn the wheel of the Dharma, saying, quote, "O noble lion, fill us and everyone else with the rain of the Dharma. It is extremely difficult to meet a Bhagavat, since he appears only once in a very long time." To get the attention of the beings, the Buddha shook the entire world. The palaces of the Brahmas and the 500 myriads of kotis of lands in the east were illuminated as never before. All of the Brahmas, seeing this phenomenon, came to the place where the Buddha was. They reverently scattered flowers and offered him their palaces. Requesting the Buddha turn the wheel of the Dharma, they praised him in verse. The Buddha knew that the right time had not yet arrived, and although he had been asked, he sat in silence. The other 3 directions, the 4 remaining quarters, and the upper and lower regions were all like this. All the Brahmas scattered flowers, offered their palaces, and requested the Buddha to turn the wheel of the Dharma, saying, quote, "It is extremely difficult to meet a Bhagavat. We entreat you to open wide the gate to immortality, and turn the wheel of the highest Dharma through your great compassion." The Bhagavat, having immeasurable wisdom, accepted their request and expounded various teachings, such as the 4 Noble Truths and the 12 linked chain of dependent origination, saying, quote, "Beginning with ignorance and ending with old age and death, all these derive from birth. You should know about such miseries." When the Buddha expounded this teaching, 600 myriads of kotis of trillions of people attained the complete extinction of all suffering and became arhats. At the time of the second teaching, thousands of myriads of people, equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River, unattached to any existent thing, also attained arhatship. After that, an incalculable number of beings attained the path. Even if one were to count for myriads of kotis of kalpas, one could not finish counting their number. Then the 16 princes renounced household life and became Shramanaras. They all asked the Buddha to expound the teaching of the Mahayana, saying, quote, "Let us and all of our attendants attain the Buddha path. We entreat you to let us obtain the Bhagavat's eye of wisdom, supreme in purity." The Buddha, knowing the minds of his children and their past conduct, taught the 6 perfections and various transcendent powers through incalculably numerous explanations and various illustrations. Explaining the true teaching and the path to be practiced by the Bodhisattvas, he taught this Lotus Sutra in verses equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. After the Buddha taught this sutra, he entered meditation in a quiet place and sat with complete concentration in the same spot for 84,000 kalpas. Those Shramanaras, knowing that the Buddha had not arisen from meditation, taught the highest wisdom of the Buddhas to immeasurable kotis of beings. Each sat on the Dharma seat and explained this Mahayana Sutra. After the great parinirvana of that Buddha, they propagated the Dharma and inspired others. Each Shramanara saved 600 myriads of kotis of sentient beings, equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. Those who heard the teaching after the Buddha's parinirvana were always born together with their teachers in various other Buddha lands. These 16 Shramanaras completely cultivated the Buddha path, and now, in the 10 directions, they have attained highest complete enlightenment. Then those who heard the Dharma in the presence of each of these Buddhas, and those who are in the Shravaka stage, will gradually be taught the Buddha path. I am one of the 16. I have also taught you in the past. Therefore, through skillful means, I will now also lead you to the goal, which is the wisdom of the Buddhas. Through these former causes and conditions, I will now teach the Lotus Sutra in order to let you enter the Buddha path. Do not be worried or frightened. Suppose there were a dangerous road in a deserted wasteland far away, where there are many harmful beasts. There is neither water nor grass. It is a fearful place for human beings. Innumerable thousands of myriads of beings wish to pass along this dangerous way. But that road is very long, some 500 yojanas. Then there is a leader, endowed with deep wisdom and knowledge, discerning and resolute, who saves the people from various calamities when they meet with danger. The people all get tired and address the leader saying, quote, "We are now totally exhausted. We want to turn back from here." The leader thinks, quote, "These people are really to be pitied. How could they possibly want to return and lose the great treasure?" He immediately thinks of skillful means and how he should now use his transcendent powers. And he makes a great apparitional city, with houses adorned and surrounded with gardens, moats, and ponds. There are fortified gates and tall towers, and it is full of men and women. When the apparition is complete, he immediately consoles the people, saying, quote, "Do not be afraid. When you enter the city, you can each do as you please." All the people enter the city. They are very happy and feel at ease, thinking they have been saved. When the leader knows they are rested, he gathers them together and addresses them, saying, quote, "You should now proceed, for this is just an apparitional city. Seeing that you were extremely fatigued and that you wanted to turn back after coming halfway, I made this apparitional city through skillful means. You should now strive to reach the treasure site together." I am exactly like this. I am the leader of all. Perceiving that those seeking the way have become timid, have stopped halfway, and are unable to walk to the end of the dangerous road of birth, death, and desire's confusion, I use skillful means and teach nirvana so that they may rest, saying, quote, "You have extinguished suffering, and you have completed what must be done." Knowing that they have reached nirvana and attained arhatship, the Buddha immediately gathers the great assembly together and teaches the true Dharma. All the Buddhas explain and teach the 3 vehicles through skillful means. Although there is only the single Buddha vehicle, they teach 2 in order to provide a place of rest. For your benefit, I now teach the truth. Quote, "What you have attained is not the ultimate goal. You must call forth great efforts in order to obtain the omniscience of a Buddha. If you attain omniscience and the qualities of the Buddha, such things as the 10 powers, and become endowed with the 32 marks, then you will have attained the ultimate goal." The Buddhas, the leaders, teach nirvana in order to let beings rest in comfort. When they know that they have rested, they lead them to the wisdom of the Buddhas.